Hello, friend. Welcome to Discoverage 14.2.
You're sounding drunk even though you've not had anything to drink today.
I'm just really tired.
Oh dear. It's Peter and a very tired Anne-Marie here.
Sorry.
To have a look at the latest episode of Discovery. We also got, coming on at the end of the podcast, for those who are interested, a review of issue 4 of Star Trek vs. Transformers. But we start with...
Previously on Star Trek Discovery.
Right, I discovered that Ariam...
Yep.
Yeah, she's played by a different actor now.
Oh.
Yes. Hannah Cheeseman, apparently.
Okay.
Who played a crewman back in the last series, but not this one. Yeah, she said in an interview that her character's an augmented humanoid. So not a full android.
Okay.
And that wouldn't have worked anyway, because, Data was supposed to be kind of like the first miracle android sort of thing. So, yeah, it kind of works, doesn't it? I mean, certainly she seems like a mixture of human and robotic, so... And, I was wondering what Narn, the lady in the red uniform...
Yes.
What species she was. Well, she's thanks to Andy, pointed out she's a Barzan, as in the Barzan wormhole.
Oh!
Yeah, they had those things
Yeah,
on there.
yeah, okay.
So that's that mystery solved, so thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
We've had feedback about the shorts and last week's episode from the Llama God.
Llama God's Larks, Got Date, Noijake, Trinketsy, It's been a long time, but now all our content is finally here. Hi, so feeding back now on all the Discovery that happened last week. Apologies for not feeding back sooner, but it basically all dropped just as I had house guests, so that was inconvenient. And naughty Netflix, bad, don't do it again. You're going to do it again, aren't you? But anyway, so there's a lot of feedbacks. Basically, most of my feedback has, yay, Tilly! Oh my god, the Enterprise is so beautiful. Yay, Tilly! The Enterprise is so beautiful. Yay, Enterprise! Tilly is so beautiful. Oh, I might have got this the wrong way around. Maybe not, I don't know. Anyway, so there's some really good content that's just dropped. I mean, I'm kind of glad that we got all the short treks at once, because on their own they weren't necessarily massively satisfying, but as little bite-sized bits before the season started, I really enjoyed them. Runaway was just great for Tilly being cute. Calypso was a really weird story. Is it potentially the future of the Discovery, or just one of those weird what-if stories? But really well done, I thought. The Brightest Star was fascinating to learn about Saru. I mean, although they're called Kelpians because they farm kelp. Is that it? But okay, I suppose we've had worse, more obvious alien names. But that was a really great story. Interesting to know where he's actually come from. And it does explain one of the questions I had from last seasons, which was, how does someone who is a prey species actually evolve warp capability and end up in the stars? And the answer to that is they don't. So that's an interesting one. And also kind of the flip side, I guess, of that D&G episode Pen Pals, the one where Data gets his pen pal, only with less data. So I guess by your terms it's probably better. And the escape artist was just ridiculous but fun. I love that. It was just the mud nonsense. It's nonsense, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. So on to the actual first episode of Discovery Season 2 then. And it was absolutely fantastic. Compared especially to the previous season, this is a series that is now confident in itself. It knows where it's going. It knows what it wants to be. And that's a problem that the first season did have. At least initially, it was slightly schizophrenic in not knowing what it wanted to do, where it wanted to be, I guess, in between the change of showrunners. But this was a completely different story. Out the gate, the episode knew what it wanted to do, and it did it really well. So the arrival of Captain Pike was handled really well. I'm really liking how he is as a captain of the Discovery. There wasn't too contrived a reason for getting him aboard the ship, although I guess the Enterprise worked extra hard following this incident so that she could actually be the only ship in the quadrant available. I mean, because this is a bit of a poor showing for her. And speaking of the Enterprise, I was going to speak about the Enterprise anyway, but might as well get to it sooner rather than later. The only problem I had with this episode was when you put the Enterprise and Discovery next to each other, and the Enterprise really does show off just how poor the design of Discovery is. I mean, she's grown on me, but the instant the Enterprise on screen, she's absolutely gorgeous, and that's the ship I want to be looking at on a weekly basis. Sorry, Discovery. Luckily though, I love the rest of the crew. And speaking of which, we actually get names for a lot of the crew, and that's great, because I think some of them went for a whole season with just not really knowing their personalities. And again, I don't know whether this is a direct response to any criticism that was levelled in that area, and also at the same time it shows off the difference in command styles between Pike and Lorca, so that was good as well. The main dramatic thrust of this series is going to be interesting to see. It does kind of smack a little bit of the 09 reboot, because that film had its red matter. This has its red angels. It's kind of simplifying things slightly, and it's also to do with Spock, so I guess maybe we'll see. As long as it's not too much of a crazy, basically Star Wars-like explanation behind the phenomena that's being seen, and there's actually something decent and Star Trek-y behind it, I'll be okay with that. Nice to see how Michael and Sarek's relationship has developed as well, and seeing Sarek reveal that he hasn't spoken to Spock for years, and obviously that's going to end up with them finally kind of reconnecting into Journey to Babel. So it's good that they've kind of kept that side of continuity at least, and with Sarek being off ship, at least they don't have to try and retcon anything else. It's just, Michael can meet Spock at some point. She's going to meet Spock, we know that because he's been cast, and they can just meet and get on with it, so, and whatever happens will happen. The other really nice and sad thing about the episode, I did a little bit of tearing up in this episode actually, really was when Stamets announces to Tilly that he's leaving, and she's just so sweet. I can understand his reasons for leaving. Will he leave or not? not, but we'll see. But that was just a lovely moment, and it made a lot of sense. And yeah, Tilly continues to be wonderful. Her fangirling over Pike, her response to Stamets, her trying to kick ass as she comes on the command program. I mean, yeah, more of that, please. More of Tilly. I want to end up seeing the Captain Tilly series, so yeah, please, more of that. And there was also just so much Starship hardware porn. We got those weird spinny domes. Science Officer Dead Meat obviously did what Science Officer Dead Meat was going to do, and I guess that served them right for dressing up like Power Rangers, and I'm sure that all will be very happy about this. Worker bees, so many worker bees in this episode. Bees everywhere. You get bees, and you get bees, and you get bees. Bees, lots of bees. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about this episode. And yeah, more, please. When any luck, we'll get another one next week. We're going to get one next week. Fantastic. Right, well, we'll speak about that one shortly.
Okay, yes. It's interesting comparing this version of Enterprise with Discovery, and Discovery looking, even more ugly as a result. We get a shot in this episode we're covering tonight from the rear of several, in fact, the rear of Discovery, and it just looks ridiculously squished. It's just really a good design has to look good from every angle, and Discovery just doesn't. It's ugly spud.
You're right that in the shorts they do at least answer the question, how on earth does a prey species evolve warp tech? They don't. Mm-hmm. I don't like some of the other things it does, into questions it leaves unanswered, but that is a key one. And
I also like quite agree that it was good that we got all 4 shorts at once.
Yeah.
Because that would have, if it had just been copying one, I think they had one a month. You imagine the order they came in, considering the only one I liked was the 4th one. I really would have given up by then, wouldn't I?
Yeah. In terms of we get to see the crew's names and you're seeing the difference, I'm wondering whether Lorca, bearing in mind where he came from, did he consider the other members, those members of the crew beneath him, so he didn't bother giving them...
He very rarely used their names, I mean, he did occasionally, but... Yes, there was no sense of him getting to know anybody, was there? Except for his chosen favourites. So
yeah. So in other words, that wasn't necessarily a criticism of the show. I think that was about Lorca.
And Brother was definitely a far more confident start to the season than we had in the previous season. Yeah. And Lama's probably right. It's to do with stability behind the helm. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. I want to see the Captain Tilly series too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, let's face it. There's been plenty of her so far this season. So yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we've also had some feedback from Purry.
Hello, Args. Purry here to talk about the short treks and probably Discovery Season 2, Episode 1, since it's all going in late anyway, so I might as well just bundle it all into the one neat package. So first, the short treks. Overall, I liked them. I thought they came damn late on Netflix, so I hope their uptake isn't too bad, because I think a lot of people had pirated them. As for opinions on them, overall I thought they were pretty good. I think Stowaway, which is always good to see more Tilly, and particularly it's nice to get a bit more background, and indeed that she's maybe not grown up in the most supportive environment. I thought that was good. But I could have actually seen this stretched out as at least a B-plot to an episode, so again, I thought I could have seen more of that, and again, all of them I think I thought I wanted to see a bit more, which is good, I suppose, always leave you wanting more. To go on to the next one, which was Calypso, which was an awesome, just a lovely character piece. There's only one thing that bugs me about Calypso, and the problem is in my brain, and that is that I now can't have the Discovery in jeopardy, because until this is resolved, and until we know what was going on in Calypso, the Discovery will be fine because it will be there in 1,000 years' time. Like I say, I know it's something you should really just forget about and carry on with, but these things do occasionally bug me. But other than that, fantastic episode, proper emotional stuff, and I like that. The next episode I want to talk about is, what was the third one called? Beyond the Farthest Star. Yeah, just some nice background on Saru, and that actually does feed into the first episode a little, so it's nice to see it referenced, and just it does inform a lot more about the Giorgio and Saru relationship, so overall good stuff. And finally, the Escape Artist, which was good fun. I loved the new arrangements of the theme. I mean, a disco version of disco, what's not to like? And also the just in general, it was disposable, but fun seeing Harry Mudd. We get a few spaceships, we get a Tellurite, and I did like the Orion, who really liked a cape. So going on to the first episode, and overall, yeah, I liked this. I would have liked to have seen more of the Enterprise, and I think if I watched through the scene in Spock's quarters at the end, I'm sure there's more Easter eggs there than we saw. I actually thought the kind of loopy grill thing we saw was reminiscent of some of the grills we saw in TOS quarters as well, which is nice. I like Captain Pike. I think his attitude in general, I mean, I'm so pleased that he didn't like Lorca's standing desk, in the ready room. Where are the chairs? I want chairs, and I liked that. So yeah, we get that. We get just generally a good episode. Obviously, we've got the plot of Stamets potentially leaving, although I don't reckon he will. And we get Tilly drunk with power. I mean, how can you not like that? And yeah, I think obviously they've seen that Tilly was a popular character, and they're clearly wanting to do more with her, which is good. And I loved her and Michael actually geeking out in the sick bay after Michael was injured. So yeah, a lot of it was set up, and some of it did feel a bit rushed. But again, I'm hoping we're keeping that engineer. The one that they found on the crash ship, because that was quite good too. And indeed, I like the fact that this could, if you took out the Red Angel stuff, this could actually almost be a standalone episode. It could work without the arc plot, but it's nice to have the seeds of that in there. It could just be they have to go to an asteroid field to, investigate something and rescue a ship in the process. It's perfectly solid Trek stuff, which is good, and it did seem a bit more fun. I'm glad that science officer got mashed in the spinny ship fight, because he was annoying me. The spinny ship was maybe a bit of excess action. It's not necessarily needed, but it didn't distract from the episode. I'm not sure it added that much to it either. It was sort of your obligatory action scene, which we did have a few of there, but overall there's some good stuff. I liked the stuff between Sarek as well. It's good to see him used as well. So overall, a promising start to the season. So all it remains to say is do keep up the good work. I hope to feedback probably late on the next episode, and until then, bye for now.
Bye, sir.
Bye. Yeah, we don't see that engineer and
no Jet Reno. No sign of Jet Reno in tonight's episode.
No.
Aboo.
Yeah.
And more importantly, no sign of Linus either. I was most upset and disappointed. Yeah, I could have stood with more Enterprise as well, but I think they probably got the balance about right, because if they'd spent too much time on the Enterprise, it would be more like the original series than Disco, wouldn't it? Yeah. So I think they did pretty well with that.
Yeah, and going back to the short treks, it is a problem if Discovery is there in however many years' time.
Yeah, exactly. That takes out any tension of worried about. I mean, obviously not of the crew, but in terms of the ship, it's going to be there, so we know it's never going to get blown up.
Yeah, unless
what actually, a stupid thing to do.
Well, unless it's actually the Disco E.
I don't think so, no. There were some outside shots, so you go back there and look. I suspect it doesn't have that. I'm pretty sure the opening shot actually had the registry on it, just to show, yes, this is the ship. And literally that's the only bit of Disco that's going to be in this. So Andy's fed back a bit more on Calypso, which was obviously a point of disagreement between us, so it'd be interesting to see what he has to say.
Hello, Peter and Anne-Marie. Just a quick... I suppose a bit of feedback going back to the short treks from a couple of weeks ago now, all the way back to last year. Last week, Anne-Marie was saying she was having a bit of trouble understanding why I really enjoyed Calypso. Not me specifically, but why a lot of people were. And we were having a chat in the pub over a beer, as one does, and it was mentioned that she'd probably forget, so I said I would send some feedback to try and explain why I really like Calypso. Before I begin, I will preface this by, as always, saying... no one is wrong for liking what they like. If you don't like something, that's absolutely fine. No one is going to judge for what you like. But this is why I personally really like Calypso, and it's for a couple of reasons. It's more than a couple, but anyway. First of all, I like the fact it's very ambiguous. I like the fact that it is completely detached from Discovery, from Star Trek, while still being trapped in a familiar world. It asks questions which it has absolutely no intention of answering. It's questions of lines of, what happened to the crew? Why is the ship up there? Why is it 1,000 years in the future? Is it 1,000 years in the future? How did the ship gain sentience? Is Zora actually the ship's computer, or is it some other AI? We don't know. So what I like is that it's posed these questions, but it doesn't answer it. I always like that in good science fiction, because the imagination, the things I think that could be the answer, are always so much better than the answer ends up being. I'll point to Alien and Prometheus. The question about the space jockey, who is the space jockey, how did he come to be there, is far, far, far more interesting than the answer we got in Prometheus. And if anything, the answer was so bad in Prometheus, it diminishes Alien as a result. So I really liked the way it kind of poses the question without answering it. The other thing I like about it is that it is, at its core, a science fiction story, a true highbrow a science fiction story, the sort of thing you'd get from Isaac Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke or something along those lines. It would fit into almost any sci-fi anthology, and I can see you could make the argument that, is this Star Trek at all? It doesn't really add anything to Discovery in general. But at its core, it's asking a fundamental question of what it is to be human. And, honestly, what is more Star Trek than that? Asking a fundamental question about the nature of our humanity. It's something that in The Next Generation is largely done through, the character of Data, and, it takes 7 whole years to look at this question. The original series does it, a bit through Spock and, interaction with aliens. But this did it in a 10-minute short. It just kind of poses a question. So I can totally see why people might not get it or like it, because it doesn't have anything to do with Discovery as a whole outside of the setting and of the ship. I can also see why it's frustrating that there's no connection to characters we've come to know and love. But that's also, in my mind, the benefit of this if you were to show this to someone who'd never seen Star Trek before. Star Trek's great strength is the characters and the interactions. But it takes a while to get into that, to know the characters, to understand it. Whereas this is just a little snapshot, a little story that's self-contained, which, kind of tells you what Star Trek is about. And what it is about is understanding what it is to be human. So that is why I really liked Calypso, in a very, very small and convoluted nutshell. Honestly, I think we could do an entire cast just on Calypso. And if anyone would like me to do that, send a message to the orgs or send a message to me over at The Great Derelict on Facebook or on Twitter or anything like that. And, we'll do it. We'll get some people together and we'll have a good old chat about it, because I'm always up for that. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Calypso, and I will possibly speak to you a bit later with my thoughts about Norwegian. Ta-ra!
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can remember down the pub, but my problem with it was that it didn't connect with Discovery.
Yeah, the very things he likes are the very things I don't like. It's really weird.
But thank you for explaining more why you like it, because you're right that asking questions about the nature of humanity is very true.
Yeah, you see, I never took in any of that in the plot because I was too busy trying to work out how the hell this fitted into Discovery. Literally, I had no idea that they were discussing those sort of things. So I'm sat there with brow crease going, what's this to do with anything? Trying to work it all out, and as a result, that's the reason why it completely didn't work for me. This might have worked if it had not been called Star Trek Discovery Short, because beyond the fact it's set on the ship, it's got nothing to do with Discovery. It's not a Discovery thing. You could argue it's a Star Trek thing, investigating what it is to be human, but don't do that. Do that as part of an episode of Discovery with the usual characters. Don't just do that with this random character of randomness. Hey, never mind.
But I understand more now why you enjoyed it. So, Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Zar. Shall we get stuck into tonight's episode?
Report.
Class M planet. No power signatures or starships in the area. No one scanning us from the surface. Wait, I detect human life signs.
No humans have settled this far out in the Beta Quadrant.
Captain, I'm picking up a transmission from the surface.
Send it through, Bryce.
We're under attack! We'll hold them inside! A few hundred souls! Men, women, and children!
Red alert. Ready photon torpedoes.
So New Eden, which is another title that does exactly what it says on the packet, which is excellent.
Yeah.
Maybe we've left behind the pretentious titles of Season 1, I rather hope so.
Yes.
Directed by one Jonathan Frakes. Should know what he's doing, really, and I think he does a pretty good job.
Yeah, yeah.
It starts with Michael meeting with Pike in what I thought were his quarters.
No, it's the ready room.
Apparently it's his ready room, and it's blooming huge. How did that... Because Andy was saying, it was as big as that before, we only saw one bit of it. No, I've looked back again. Lorca's ready room was tiny. Absolutely tiny. I mean, admittedly, a lot of it was quite dark, but it was tiny. This is a massive space, and kind of cool, but is his quarters really small to make up for it? I don't know.
It seems to have a sort of sofa-y, loungy bit.
Yeah.
Is that like the equivalent of the conference room?
Well, I do, because they have... I'm pretty sure you see the conference room later. Unless it's in the same room. I don't know. It's so big, I cannot get a handle on it, is the problem.
I think it's the captain's ready room combined with...
Because certainly Picard's had a sofa area as well as his desk.
Yeah,
but I mean, it was tiny in comparison to this, and supposedly the Galaxy class is a huge ship. Yeah. So why has Discovery got such a big ready room suddenly when it didn't before? Well, they've obviously knocked through a wall or something.
Yeah, well, they've taken out Lorca's torture implements, haven't they?
Yeah, that was elsewhere on the ship, though. That you had to travel a bit to see that, but yeah.
I don't know. Unless it's now like a senior officer's mess bit thing. I don't know.
Apparently Spock has committed himself to a psychiatric unit, and Pike breaks data protection rules, telling her all about this. on the basis that the red things Spock has been exploring are so key somehow. We've never has it ever been explained why these red things, these communications, are so key? Because apparently it is as important as the Klingon War was, but really? I mean, I can see how the Klingon War, you're fighting for your survival and they're going to break a few rules. But this, bit weird. It's all very nebulous, and it's not, obvious by the end of the story, although obviously things are deepening a bit.
Well, the thing is, but if it is genuinely serious, then...
Well, they should explain why it's genuinely serious.
Was the first one only serious because there were lives in danger then?
I think so, because he said it was a combination of things that had brought him to take command of the Disco, because it was a combination of something new and some people in danger, and there was another one as well. I can't remember what the other one was, but the bottom line is it just doesn't make any sense to me. But it'll no doubt get explained. It's just that it would perhaps be better to have some idea of why it's such a, as we find out later on, a groundbreaking thing, apparently, because they'll abandon General Order 1 in order to find out more about it, which kind of goes against why call it General Order 1. But anyway, we'll get on to that.
Yeah. But what you're saying about breaking data protection rules isn't legal necessity trumps consent.
But I haven't been convinced of the legal necessity yet. That's the problem.
Okay. So, yeah, but in universe it seems to exist even if we don't understand
We don't know
why.
what it is yet.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced that Pike is breaking any rules. At this point, we can come on to later on, but at this point, I don't think he's breaking any rules.
The other interesting point from this scene is that we find out that Pike's father taught comparative religion. Oh, hey, it's still a thing, at least a generation before then. So interesting.
Yeah.
So a new red thing has appeared, and Tilly has teched some sort of tech to find them or something using the deflector dish, which they always do. It's the wonder thing.
Modify the deflector dishes. It's like the equivalent of reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Modify the deflector dish.
Anyway, they discover that the new red thing is in the beta quadrant, so they're going to have to use the spore drive, which they said they were going to never use again, in order to get there. And Stamets talks about seeing Hugh in the network, so we get the impression that possibly this might be how he returns, because we know he's going to. He's on all the posters. That's not a spoiler, we know this, so... Anyway, they jump, but there's no sign of the signal red thing. They're in orbit of a ringed planet that we later find out is called Terralicium. There are human life signs and a distress signal, which they find has been broadcasting for 200 years, so long before warp was discovered, so how did these people get here? And on the planet, there is a scene of rural idyll complete with a church.
Why does everybody describe it as rural idyll? It's all like, we don't have enough technology, so therefore we have to work bloody hard and live in rural.
Yeah. That speaks the person who does not like rural.
No.
Yeah.
Rural and idyll. No.
My mind immediately went to, oh no, please don't let this be the planet of the mobsters or the planet of the Nazis all over again, because we know they're out there somewhere, aren't they?
See, whereas my brain almost basically went to a Kevin Uxbridge place, and I thought, are they all sort of, they're not real people kind of thing?
Interesting, yes, no. But that wasn't the answer either.
No.
So that's our teaser, which is pretty intriguing and very Trekky. This feels a lot more like a Trek series now. Apparently, these humans arrived during World War III, but are without any technological advancement, not even any electricity. Pike suggests it's a result of the hand of God or something.
I thought that was Maradona.
Yes, quite. Apparently, Lieutenant Owashekin grew up in a Luddite collective. Wow. That's the name of my jazz fusion band, Luddite Collective. So she's a natural selection for the away team. Yay! She's getting to do a bit more. Yeah. And later on, Tilly calls her Owu as well, which is a very Nigerian thing. It's really good. Wow. Let's hope at this point. I'm thinking that Disco has a better approach to religion than the original series or Next Generation. Tilly is trying to mine the asteroid they picked up last week to use the Metreon to replace Stamets as a component of the spore drive, but it's very heavy.
Yes.
She gets a sample, but it knocks her for 6.
Yes, well, it smashes through a table, and then the one that she actually gets, I mean, there's all blood and everything.
Yeah, messy. On the conveniently Earth-like planet, that saves a few pennies, doesn't it? The away team enters the church, which has stained glass windows with symbols of all the religions. But it has to be said, I suppose it was a church, a pretty central place for, it was like stained glass window, and it's got all the symbols around the edge, and then there's like, Jesus! Right in the middle. Okay, but it did start as a church, so maybe they're just modifying what they had, eh? In one of the stained glass windows, we see Burnham's angel. Yeah. Ooh, mysterious angel. Then they're discovered by a dude called Jacob and taken to the All-Mother, who's played by Sheila McCarthy. You recognise her?
No.
Nope. Well, I did, but I couldn't figure out where until I went through IMDb and I realised, oh, she was the reporter from Die Hard 2.
It's been ages since I've seen Die Hard 2.
Apparently she was also in The Littlest Hobo as well, but that was many years ago.
There's a voice that keeps on calling me down the road, that's where I'll always be. Every stop I make a new friend. Can't stay for long, just turn around and I'm gone again.
Yeah, that wasn't at all unpredictable.
Sorry.
She tells their history of how they were rescued from Earth during the nuclear holocaust by the angel. Those of all faiths were saved, and handily, of course, most of them have angels. So that's...
As we know from Babylon 5.
Indeed. Hence their combined belief, although there's no place for a faith in science, as all their technology got busted on the journey, including a broken camera that recorded the deliverance. And in a wonderful moment, we get a bit of Christian liturgy.
Peace be with you.
And also with you.
Which was really nice. I responded to it before Pike, not expecting him to respond at all. And he did! Rah! Tilly is woken up by someone called May, and then Saru comes in and bollocks her for mining alone. He's more forgiving when Tilly explains why, but he tells her not to show off to prove she's worthy as the youngest candidate on the command training programme. And he's very sweet with her, bless him.
Yeah. And I like the fact he says, I was the only Kelpian and I did too much. I put too much burden on myself. So don't do that to yourself. You have value. And it's like, oh, I wanted to give Saru a hug.
Yeah. The planet's rings are dropping a deadly amount of radiation onto the planet suddenly, and they can't contact the away team or beam them up because of it. Saru suggests that they were brought to the planet to save the population. And then they need to do that thing that Worf's brother invented, where they beam them all up to the... no holodeck. Never mind. But that was immediate. I thought, that's what they're going to do. And then it clocked. Oh, no holodecks, are they yet? Burnham goes off on one about how the colonists should be returned to modern society. But Pike points out that they're in a new Eden here. They're quite happy and we ought to be leaving them alone.
Yeah, also they might not want to return to
modern
society.
Well, I'm sure they don't.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're pre-warp, so General Order 1 is in operation.
Yeah.
And that's what it was called before. It was called the Prime Directive in the original series, so that's nice. Oshekun finds the communicator, and Jacob crops up in the shadows and explains he's part of a line of kind of stealth scientists who've been tending the beacon down the years. Pike tries bullshitting, but Jacob sees through it and throws a grenade to stop them leaving, locking them in the crypt and taking all the tech that they probably should have brought with them, let's face it.
Yeah.
Sticking up phasers for effort's sake, because there's no sign of them being any threat. I mean, you take a phaser if you've got Fred, but you don't ordinarily.
Yeah, but don't they use it to burn through things and stuff as well, phasers? They're not just as a...
Yeah, but when you're going to a pre-warp civilization, you take as little as possible, don't you? So
yeah.
Oshekun manages to break them out, which is good. She's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Pike shows more respect to General Order 1 than Kirk ever did, and orders them both to stay undercover, God or no God. Then there's the shot I mentioned earlier from behind Discovery where it looked appalling. Freaky May appears out of nowhere again to help Tilly, who's panicking and has had too many espressos.
I love that. It's like, espressos in sick bay?
And you're going, who is this? Is it some sort of imaginary friend? Is it Tilly's version of the angel? I don't know. All even mysteries they're piling on. With May's help, she develops the idea of using the gravimetric pull of the asteroid to suck the radiation back up, and runs off in the wrong direction in a sickbay smock to sort it out. Bursting onto the bridge, she squishes Detmer out of the way on the helm position to show off her plan, and points out to the helm officer that she'll need to do a donut in a spaceship.
Nice.
Yes. The only way to get in the right position is for Disco to jump again. Blimey, this spore drive they're never going to use again. He's getting quite a bit of use, isn't it? And they'll have to use it again to get back, won't they?
Yeah.
Jacob brings his goodies and tells the All-Mother, who tells him off, as does Pike.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not steal.
I like that.
Jacob's daughter plays with one of the phasers and sets it to explode. That's an unfortunate setting, isn't it? But I suppose you could be useful for something. An action Pike grabs it off her and throws himself onto it, fatally injuring himself. Almost fatally, anyway.
Yeah.
Disco does its donuts and drops the asteroid.
It looks like it does a poo. It does a little poo.
Which, down the pub yesterday, is exactly what Andy said you would say. There we go.
But it does, though. That's what it looks like. It's even brown.
It attracts all the radioactive rocks because they like hanging out with poo or something. The away team shelter in the privacy of the church. But Jacob breaks open the doors and they see them beam out, which the All-Mother interprets as the angel returning to save them. At least she doesn't sort of demand Jacob is burned at the stake as a heretic or anything. She seems actually quite reasonable for a religious person in Trek. Let's face it, they're not often sympathetically portrayed, are they? There's a lovely moment when the crew realise they've saved the colonists and they applaud, and the Alexander Courage theme plays. Yeah. It's just highlighting the fact that, yes, they are trekking the Trek again. Yeah.
The asteroid successfully diverted all the debris from the planet's atmosphere.
Perhaps you should disobey my direct orders more often, Ensign.
No, I think your orders are probably really good. I need to pass out now.
May appears when Tilly is in the turbolift about to leave and calls her Stilly, which is even more surreal. And then later on, Tilly does some homework and finds out that she was at school with her, but she's been dead for 5 years. Ghosty, woo! So we've got angels and ghosties. Blimey. Again, this might be a way for Hugh to return, of course. Michael visits Pike and manages to make him laugh. Rather painful considering the broken ribs. Yeah. Just mean to, but he thanks her for following his orders and maintaining cover. And yes, all credit to her for that, considering her knee-jerk reaction to the religious society in the first place.
Yeah.
She points out that not following orders has got her into a bit of trouble in the past.
Yeah.
Understatement of the millennium, yes. Yeah. And then she admits she should have told him about seeing the angel on the asteroid before. She asks, what about Jacob? But General Order 1, says Pike. But what about that helmet cam footage that might explain all about the red things? Doesn't that override GO1? Well, again, I've not been persuaded it does, but apparently it does.
How can it? Otherwise it's General Order 2.
Exactly. Oh. Despite that, Pike beams down and tells Jacob that he lied and spills all the beans. Oh, for heaven's sake. Yeah. You can't stick to it, can you? Whatever captain is in charge of this series. Jacob says having an answer about what happened to Earth is enough for him, which doesn't really convince, to be honest, but never mind. He was so excited before when he thought they were scientists. And in a Star Trek multicoloured swap shop, Pike swaps a power cell for the camera footage lighting up the church, which is definitely breaking General Order 1. Surely he could have just asked for the camera and the guy would have given it to him. He didn't need to do a swap with some advanced technology. Oh. On the ship, Pike watches the footage, which comes complete, surprise, surprise, or not, I guess, with an angel.
Yeah.
There we are. Overall, I thought it wasn't as exciting as last week's, but then they were pulling out all the stops last week, weren't they, for the beginning of the season. No, that was always going to be a bit of an adrenaline ride. I didn't like the fact we didn't see Jet Reno. I didn't like the fact we didn't see Linus, but I guess he may never crop up again. They might have the budget for him again until right at the end of the series.
Yeah.
Don't like the fact we don't know what these red things are, and therefore we can't judge whether they're making the right decisions or not. But I do like the fact that Olusegun gets more to do. That's nice. Yeah. And Detmer's still getting a bit more as well. So cool.
I like the fact that the Red Angel things are currently unexplained.
Yes, I mean, that the angel being unexplained, I don't have a problem with. It's the red things in space.
They are the angels.
Are they?
Yes, that's why they're red.
Oh, right, okay. Well, and put two and two together on that one. Just shows how slow I am, although might not be the case.
And I think one of the things...
But the angels are a lot smaller than those things. I mean, they might be connected with them, hence the colour, but it's not the same as, is it? Because it turns up in a humanoid form.
Yeah, but coming out of the red, so clearly they're the same thing or the same civilization or whatever.
They're related, obviously, yes.
Yeah. So I like the fact that they're not really explained. I think the other thing as well is that, you know, you could have gone down the traditional Trek route of, you know, it's not supernatural, everything can be explained or whatever. And the thing is, both the religious people and Jacob are right, because the fact is they were rescued and transported an insane distance by a red angel extraterrestrial being.
Yes, and Burnham's like, oh, well, I don't connect that with God. And it's like, well, Pike points out, well, they do. And, I mean, duh, if you're rescued by an angel-looking thing, you are going to jump to the conclusion, aren't you?
Yeah. It's hard not to. And what's wrong with giving thanks for the fact that you were rescued?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's face it, if this was the original series, Kirk would have spilled the beans straight away about who they were. He wouldn't give him a fig about General Order 1. And in Next Generation, they would have been beamed on the holodeck, which went wrong, and Picard would be forced to break...
And they would all have been Irish or something.
Yeah, and Picard would have been forced to break the Prime Directive or pretend to be God, depending on who's writing the script this week. Pike says he can't do the thing here, and then he does it.
Oh, no, that's the sort of thing...
It would have been a lot more powerful if he just stuck to his guns and left them alone. It cheapened it, him going down, particularly giving over that power cell. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I get what Burnham was saying about the helmet being important or whatever, but why couldn't they have just gone back and asked for it? He didn't have to beam down.
Jacob would have given it to them in a shot, I'm sure. Yeah. Hey-ho. But as I say, at least it wasn't all anti-faith. There was a balance between science and faith in this, which was nice. Pike's obviously slightly more inclined towards religion because of his father, and clearly Burnham is science to science.
Yeah, but also I liked they were discussing. Was it Asimov?
Yes. Was it Asimov? No, he's the rules of robotics, isn't he?
Who was it they were discussing then when they said?
Is it Arthur C. Clarke?
Anyway, about how science so far advanced.
Yeah,
seems like magic kind of thing. And it's just, I don't know, all this whole thing...
Clark, it's obviously Clark,
okay.
Just check.
And I get that she's been raised on Vulcan, so she's going to kind of have that view in a way, but, there must be a rational explanation. No, not everything is rational.
But this is Trek. It usually is.
But also, Vulcans are kind of spiritual, aren't they?
They are. It is a weird thing because they have their science of logic and it has rituals and.
Yeah, I'm just thinking she's raised on Vulcan. Should she not be used to the idea of a religion? Because just think of T'Pau and all that. Shit. But also, just thinking of Burnham here rather than the wider debates. Thinking of Burnham, she's done this Catra thing. And she's talked about Sarek's soul.
Yeah.
How's that rational? I didn't.
The whole Catra thing doesn't fit either, does it?
No.
Wonderful. You can't escape a bit of mysticism, however scientific you try to be. At least that's our opinion. Let's find out what other people thought. So we have Hard from Doreen.
And she writes, I really enjoyed this. I'm fascinated by how the Spock storyline's developing. I know it might be, as Anthony suggests, a way for him not to be there, to just provide the right solution straight away. But I hope the Red Angel storyline and Spock's continue to develop. There are many funny bits in this, like when Telly had her Eureka moment in sickbay and then initially runs the wrong way to the bridge, and then appears on the bridge in motormouth mode in her hospital gown. And near the end, when Pike calls Burnham to a meeting and tells her not to make him laugh, and she responds with, I grew up on Vulcan. This is the kind of unintentional comedian that I am. I've watched this twice now because I was confused. Now, I could be trying to think too far into the corners of this, or the disco writers didn't think quite far enough. So, in the church, they discover that the windows are over 200 years old. Windows that show symbols from many of Earth's major religions. When Burnham goes to scan the cobbled-together religious texts, Pike says, we could look at the pictures, and goes on to explain the original use of stained glass. Mm-hmm. Then when they meet the All-Mother, the suggestion is that they combined all the religions together because they didn't know which god to thank. The thing is, if the church was transported from Earth around 200 years ago, and the windows are over 200 years old, then the windows showed the combined faith, one a bit like Babylon 5's Dr. Franklin's Foundationism, before they were saved from World War III and Earth. If the windows are over 200 years old, they predate the rescue.
They do. Now, you could say, well, perhaps most of the windows, because it looks like they've taken stained glass, or Christian stained glass, because most of the pictures are Christian symbols, just with the other ones added around and maybe they added those later, but that's not the way you do stained glass. You do it as of a piece. So, yeah.
It doesn't work, does it?
Also, thinking about it, it didn't look like proper stained glass, did it? No. It just looked like printed glass. Stained glass has separate panels with the different colours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe by the time of World War III, they're making stained glass in a different way, I suppose.
Yeah.
But they never get a faculty for it.
She says, also as a dyslexic who still struggles occasionally to read, I find it interesting that this seems to suggest that illiteracy is a recognised issue in the 24th century. When people talk about pictures being used in places of worship, they seem to suggest they were meant there for the peasants in days of old. Therefore, what I mean is, if this is supposed to be after our current times, where our Western cultures and bureaucracies assume everyone is literate, and even modern stained glass is more interpretive than narrative. Modern stained glass is mostly weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why is Captain Pike speaking like a tour guide of some ancient cathedral in this 24th century World War III church? Lastly, if the church in this windows existed on Earth 200 years ago, and Michael and Pike both have some experience of the study of comparative religion, why don't they know about this one? Could it be that it was relatively new, and when the followers of it left on Earth discovered the scorched Earth where the church should be?
No. The dialogue doesn't work, as she's pointed out, but I think what you're supposed to think is that this religion was born as a result of them being taken away. Like she says, that doesn't work with the chronology of the stained glass, but I think that's what you're expected to think, in which case it doesn't predate them leaving, so therefore they wouldn't know about, Michael, etc., wouldn't know about it because they were whisked away.
Yeah, but that doesn't work with the windows,
But it doesn't work with the window. Well spotted, Doreen. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen.
Right, we have heard from Fatbone Smith.
Okay, hopefully this isn't going to sound too much like an ASMR thing. I'm recording this in the middle of the night, so I'm trying to be a little quiet and not wake anyone up. Well, that was a change of pace, wasn't it? There are a few things that jumped out in me in this episode. The main one, I'll say, was there was a lot of criticism when Season 1 came out about the character of Michael Burnham and how she was called a Mary Sue. She was incredibly competent at everything she did. She was very, very intelligent. She knew everything, seemingly. She got everything right. And I never really saw that until this episode. And it was a very specific moment. It was the moment when Tilly and Burnham are on the bridge, and Tilly has an idea for how to track the red burst. And Burnham instantly, upon hearing this idea, says something along the lines of, no, that won't work. And then she gives an alternative plan, and they put that into practice, and it works, and they get the information they want. And that seemed to me to be really, really weird. Obviously, Burnham is intelligent. She's older than Tilly, so she's got more experience as a Starfleet officer. Probably got more tricks up her sleeve as a scientist. But it just seemed to me really odd to elevate one character at the cost of the other one. I don't know why they would do that unless it actually leads to something later on down the season, because it's such an odd thing. If Tilly had had the idea that Michael had in the first instance, and Tilly's bright herself, she could easily have been written to be the person who came up with that idea. I think it would have been good because it would have played into the experiment that she does later on. Coming up with a plan to successfully track the red burst would have given her the confidence to go down to the shuttle bay and experiment on the asteroid. I'll have to see where that one goes. Speaking of that asteroid, by the way, tiny little nitpick here. If that thing is so heavy, why is Burnham able to pick up a handful of it in the previous episode? Dunno. Nitpicking like that, I could have my own YouTube channel. What else do I have to say? A few more things. Oh yeah, the syncretists on the planet. There's maybe a criticism to be levelled at the episode that we don't get to know them as people very well. I don't think that's the point of the episode. I think the point of the episode is to introduce the idea that the Red Angel, whatever that is creating these red bursts basically to summon help. A bit like Lion-O in Thundercats with the Thundercat symbol. So maybe that is it even an A plot? Is it the B plot? Which one's which? Is it on the surface the A plot? Is it in the space the B plot? Or is it the other way around? Maybe that was a little undercooked. Maybe cooking it a little bit more would have unbalance the episode. I'm not sure where I land on that. But lots of juicy danglers in the episode, lots of intimations of things to come. Spock's in a psychiatric unit. Interesting. That's probably all I have to say on this episode. I didn't leave the episode, I think, quite with the same excitement and energy that I left the last one with. The last one I really, really wanted to see what happened next. This one I'm leaving it a little bit more, oh, that was good, yeah, fine. Interested to see what happened next, but not quite as excited. But yeah, juicy danglers. We'll just have to see what happens next. Okay, bye-bye. Off, you bugger. Off.
I need to keep that in.
Wow. Yeah, definite change of pace. Completely agree with that. And that's okay, because as I say, you expect the opener to be all whiz-bang, but you want some, well, not necessarily quiet, I don't think it was particularly quiet, but some, diff changes of pace and different sorts of episode. And this was, an exploring the issues type of episode, but there was still some action to be had.
Yeah. Good point about if this asteroid material is so bloody heavy, how come Burnham can pick up a piece in episode 1?
God, everybody's spotting these problems at the moment, aren't they, Guy?
I like the idea of the Red Angel as Lion-O.
Right, yeah, I can't quite get my head around that one yet, sorry. That has disturbing theological consequences as far as I'm concerned. The Mary Sue thing, I think I never bought the Mary Sue thing just because Burnham is a flawed character. She does have, I mean, you could argue now she isn't. I don't know. We have to see how the season pans out. But certainly in the first season, she was making mistakes.
Yeah.
Really, really huge ones, like starting wars. That's not Mary Sue behaviour, is it? I mean, even though she was doing it, her motives were good, but, she was disobeying orders and that had consequences. I think there's more of a danger in some ways of Tilly turning out to be a bit of a Mary Sue, ironically, considering how awkward she was to begin with, just because she had all the answers in this one, didn't she? And
apart from there, and maybe they put that in deliberately.
Maybe to stop him seeing such a... Yeah, maybe, because, Saru seemed a bit pointless, didn't he, really? Because wasn't he science before he became first officer? And yet he hasn't got any of the scientific answers, so... interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think it's a bit of a... Yeah, it's just dangerous territory, because our heroes ultimately are going to be heroes. And I always feel like Mary Sue's a thing that's just thrown at female characters who are heroes. And they're not allowed to be heroes and, do good things and be amazing? Sorry. I think they are, actually.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if there was a equivalent, I don't know,
yes, there is. It's called a Captain Kirk, who's always right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knows things he shouldn't really know because they're outside his skill set, but knows them.
Yeah.
And beats McCoy to the medical answers and beats... Sorry, don't get me started on Kirk.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, not at home to Mary Sue as a concept.
No, me neither. You're right that we don't get to know the syncretists.
I think we get to know enough, to be honest, because it focuses really just on two characters, and I think that's sensible for the time they've got. And, Jake was got a very likeable character. And as I say, the Holy Mother, or whatever she was,
All-Mother.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't completely unsympathetic, which normally she would be in Trek, in the role she's in. So, all credit to them, actually.
Yeah. Now, where does All-Father come from?
That's Norse, isn't it? That's what Odin is.
Right, so they've got an All-Mother.
Yes.
So have they maybe nicked a little bit of Norse mythology and all as part of their syncretism then, do you think?
Possibly. They've got Wiccan in there, she said, so yes, I don't know how that relates, but anyway.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Right. We've heard from the Llama God on this episode.
Llama God's log, Scott date, Noijake, Diggity Shear. There's something out there, there's something in the trees. Trees? Yeah. Okay, before we get to this week's episode of Discovery, as directed by M. Night Shyamalan, I'm just going to respond to something that you said in your podcast about last week's episode. And that was your complaints about the Saru short trek. And whilst you're right, we don't actually see them being a prey species in quite the same way that Saru describes it in Season 1. The way that I'd read that episode was that the Kelpians had been a prey species, but at some point, and probably a recent point in their history, they've actually been subjugated. And because they've been such a weak species, their subjugation by outside forces was easily done. And this is why they end up in the situation that they're in. And yeah, sure, we don't actually see them do any running or anything, but maybe this is something that had been adapted to until recently, and kind of language that Suri was using in that has been using in the past was more metaphorical and a bit colourful to sort of describe the situation they found themselves in. So he'd been metaphorically running or fearing for his life for most of his life. So maybe that's where they were going with that. But yeah, okay, on to this week's episode of Discovery itself, and another great one. And this is definitely a series that seems to have found its footing again, to the point that it's actually doing proper Star Trek. This is great. They're an impossibly huge distance away from Earth, and yet they find an Earth-like settlement full of humans, not parallel evolution, unfortunately. It would be way too much of a callback to old-style Trek, but still, actually seeing these kind of tropes played out in the episode, I mean, that was really great. There's some really great character moments, and some really nifty little science-based surprises, like the Discovery ending up having to do donuts whilst holding a massively attractive asteroid out of its butt. Attractive starship butts. In order to save the problem of the week, that was really good. Even if, as I did say, at times this felt like it was an episode that was made up of M. Night Shyamalan cast-offs. Tilly, she sees dead people. It's an old-style village, but it's not. It's actually in the future. And we're getting messages from God to go and help people. What's next? Is it the trees? Are we going to find a lady in the water? I actually can't remember much about that film, but anyway, yeah, I love Tilly this episode. There we go. That's going to go without saying, I think, as we go forwards. But the way that she saves the day and her continued character work is good. What I'm really glad about is the fact that they didn't actually keep the mystery going as to whether or not she could see her friend, because it was kind of obvious that she was the only person who could see that friend of hers that we'd never seen before. And I'm glad they kind of revealed by the end of the episode that she's actually dead. So where are they going to go with this? I don't know. I'm going to guess it's tied in with the aliens, the red angels, or whatever the hell they are. And this is what I mean by the allusions to getting messages from God. Are they being dragged around the universe by these red signals so that they can save people in need? Do we actually find out that in charge of the red angels there's a red barkeeper who's actually God, who's making them jump every week? I'm sure I've heard that before somewhere. I don't know. But still, it's good that there's an ongoing mystery, and so far it's not overshadowing the actual plot. And again, this was an interesting diversion. The really interesting thing this week, of course, was the potential revelation that Pike, who continues to be a great captain and a great non-Lorca, and I'm looking forward to hearing Org's thoughts on what he's done with the Ready Room, because it looks a hell of a lot nicer than Lorca ever had it, but it seems that Pike's alluding to the fact that he's actually brought up Catholic, so that's going to be interesting to see, isn't it? An actual religious person, and not only that, a person of faith who's a member of the Federation and serving in Starfleet. And more to the point, of a religious person of Christian-based faith and not some sort of weird exotic Eastern religion, because, you know, obviously that's how in the 60s a lot of those were viewed, to actually see that in the Roddenberry universe. And this is going to be good, because, I mean, I'll confess, as an atheist myself, and yeah, I know that I'm a god myself, but yeah, I mean, I never claimed to actually believe in myself, so that's my own issues, never mind. Moving on from that, I think a lot of Star Trek's attitudes put me towards being slightly less tolerant of religion than I have been at times, and thankfully I've grown out of it, and especially having seen, you know, the way that it can lead to Dawkins-like fanaticism. That's a bit of a problem, and I much prefer the approach as set out with Babylon 5 of being tolerant towards people of different faiths and just understanding people as opposed to dismissing them just because you don't like the idea. So yeah, no, I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this, and if they do explore this, if this could actually end up being more Star Trek than Star Trek's ever been, if we're actually going to fully explore and understand and accept all parts of the human condition. So yeah, I'm actually really excited about this and where this is going to go, and that's even aside from where the plot's going to go and whether we're actually going to see Spock at any point soon. So far, good stuff. Right now, I will disappoint all my fans, I'm afraid, by saying that I probably won't be feeding up back next week or for the next 3 weeks, because I am in fact going to be going to visit Tom Paris's penal colony. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. I mean, I'd love to be able to get some feedback in, but being on the wrong side of the planet, it should keep us hidden long enough until we can get at least full impulse power restored and we can head towards the Mutara Nebula. Anyway, as ever, looking forward to hearing what you and everyone else has thought about these episodes, and until I do finally return to you, glory to you and your cast.
Cheers,
Thank you. I'm afraid I don't buy your answer to this.
No, because the whole thing about when he was on the forest planet and he could run really, really fast, that was for a reason, wasn't it?
Yeah, and also he's permanently afraid, and that's the relief and the release that the forest planet gives him.
I've not watched the films of it. Well, that's not true. I've seen a couple of M. Night Shyamalan.
Two of them, I think. Shyamalan Ding Dong ones.
Unbreakable, I saw and was impressed with. But off the top of my head, I think that's the only film of his I've actually seen.
I've seen the other famous one.
Yeah, well, I was about to say the Bruce Willis one, but he's in several, isn't he? Oh, wait, again, not M. Night. So you may be right. Perhaps the writers are big fans of M. Night Shyamalan being.
Yeah, don't know. But part of me wonders if things are connected with the Red Angels, but they're still doing the Spore Drive stuff, and I'm wondering if there might be a connection between Tilly's friend and what might happen with Hugh and something to do with the Spore Drive, rather than necessarily being
an angel thing.
Connection.
Yeah, it's not all going to be the same thing. I wouldn't have thought
so.
Yeah, so now the angel connection. I've got Muppets going around my head as a result.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
I'm not sure Pike's necessarily a Christian himself. Certainly, he picks up a load from his father, but I'm not convinced we're going to see, sort of crucifixes in his massive cavernous ready room anytime soon. No. But you never know. That would be quite pleasant.
Yeah. So you get A1 with the Muppets, whereas I get, is it Eurythmics?
Must be talking to an angel. 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 Must be talking to an angel.
Oh,
to an angel.
Yeah. We could, at this rate, we could finish, because there are so many angels. Like, the problem is that we end up with bloody Robbie Williams, then, aren't we? Let's maybe not go down that route. I was thinking we might have angel tunes at the end of all the episodes, but no, let's not do that.
Well, we could have one at the end of this one.
Yes, we could do. We have a few options for this one. And enjoy your honeymoon, sir.
Yeah.
And we've heard from Andy on this one.
Hello, me again. Just a couple of very quick thoughts about the episode New Eden. Mostly just to say I really, really liked it. This, more than anything I think we've seen in Discovery, kind of harkened back to your more classic Trek. You have an A story, you have a B story. It's a lot lighter than what we had really throughout most of season 1, and I really, really enjoyed it. I love Captain Pike. If you're telling me that a ship can skip across the universe on a highway made of mushrooms, I'm going to have to take it on faith. Or when Saru's saying about the tardigrade, and it's the whole, you had to be there. I like it, and I think what's really nice about this episode is it definitely feels like it's one where people have looked at the reaction, the response to season 1, and have tailored the show towards it, and not to its detriment. It could be very easy for them to go too far one way or the other, but they're still true to Discovery. But they've, there's a lot more Tilly in this than we saw in season 1. A lot more of the other bridge officers as well. I mean, you'll forgive me for forgetting the name of the ops officer. He says desperately looking it up on the Memory Alpha. I can't find it. You'll know. Insert name here. But anyway, she got to go on an away mission. Something I don't think we've seen with anyone outside of the main cast throughout season 1. So that was fantastic. Some more great stuff with Detmer doing a space donut. Discovery did a little poo. That was a thing that happened there. But yeah, all in all, I really liked it. And what was very, very interesting was how, I think more so than any other episode of Star Trek, including Deep Space Nine, took a long look at religion. And not just the concept of religion, but, outright stating the major faiths on Earth, which, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Star Trek's ever done. I think this is the first time they've mentioned Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism in an episode of Star Trek. So I just thought that was very interesting and definitely something that would never have happened under Gene Roddenberry. But that's all, all bye. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I think Discovery continues to delight me. I look forward to every single episode. I like that it's exploring its own kind of self-contained story in that more traditional Star Trek way, while still leaving lots of threads for the larger overarching story. And enough, intrigue for me to go, ooh, these dots are connected. I want to see where we're going to go with that. So, yes, all in all, a big thumbs up from me on this episode. Looking forward to much, much more. So until next time, ta-ra!
Ta-ra, thank you.
I think you're right. I don't think they have even named the face before. You've got a mention of Hinduism
in
Data's Day. And that's kind of it.
That's pretty much it. I mean, they've referenced the Bible, the Judeo-Christian tradition, enough times. Eden, for instance. This isn't the first mention we've had of Eden, going right back to the original series, and a great cave in the shape of a big snake. I mean, wow. Yeah. So they've drawn from the Christian tradition, but they've never actually talked about Christianity or Judaism or any of the other faiths before. Deep Space Nine did faith, but it didn't do Christian faith.
No.
So it does kind of feel like new territory, which is nice.
Yeah. Talking of Deep Space Nine, do you think there's going to be any kind of connection between, like, the Prophets and the Paros and the Red and stuff? Or do you think they're not going to link
I
back?
shouldn't think so, no. I wouldn't be holding my breath for that. Because, all the new listeners that have joined since Disco are going to sit there going, what?
Yeah,
you are.
The other thing is, though, when it appears, and, like, that it appeared in the first time, it was kind of like Pike stepped out of that shape.
Yes.
I keep expecting Jodie Whittaker to step out. Yeah. It kind of looks like might do before she appears at the TARDIS having materialised.
Ola Shekin, Here's the ops officer. I did a learn on all the names after last episode when we had the roll call, so I think I'm there on them all.
I think it's Olu for short, isn't it?
It is, yes, which is, as I say, that's a fairly Nigerian thing, so that's nice.
Yeah, I did like the humorous dialogue. Like, if you're telling me we can travel across the stars at great speed on a spiral of mushrooms, I'm just going to have to take you.
Yeah, and again, that's him not doing science. He's not a sciencey captain at all, which is quite nice, actually.
Yeah.
But it does feel very Trek. It does feel like they've listened to some of the criticisms of the last series, of the aspects that didn't feel like Trek. So we're now exploring new worlds, which kind of what Trek is all about. So well done, guys. Brilliant.
Yeah. Although I have to say as well, they weren't exploring new worlds and stuff. I still think partly because of Lorca.
Yeah, well, anyway. We're moving on.
Okay.
Moving forwards. Cool. Well, if you're purely interested in Discovery, that's it for our Discovery discussion this week. And we'll catch you for next week's episode, which again, I don't know what the title is, so it's all a mystery at the moment. But if you'd like to hang on for something about Transformers versus Star Trek, then you're more than welcome to join us. Yeah, talk about gear change from Discovery, but it is Trek. It belongs here. It doesn't belong on Borgcast Galactica, does it?
No.
So what did we think of issue 4?
I don't know.
I mean, let's face it, where'd you go after the previous issue's escalation of craziness? The answer is you can't get any crazier than that, so we're just on a peak now. We're moving on the peak.
Yeah, it's all sort of lots of don't squish me.
Yes. That's quite that.
And then Kirk is going to lose it. Did you understand why Kirk was losing his mind?
Yeah, he was kind of getting absorbed into Fortress Maximus, so he's kind of linked with it, and it's a danger of sort of sucking him in. But of course, this is James T. Kirk we're talking about, so there's no way his individuality is going to be absorbed. So you get several points where he's talking just like William Shatner with ...
Yeah.
You know, the staccato dialogue. I was like, oh, nice. Can feel the burning.
And then at the end, there's now 2 Enterprises going off to save Kronos or something.
Yes, one of which is Fortress Maximus, and the other one is the actual Enterprise. Yeah. And yeah, you get Kronos at the end, which is a nice ending, but no, and it was interesting and wowing as the ending of the previous issue, but yeah.
And the Autobots are on the real Enterprise helping to fix it.
They're in the shuttle bay, so I'm not sure what they can do much, really, because that's the only place they'll fit.
Yeah, but then it's like, if there's anything your people can do to help us, well, how if they're all in the shuttle bay because they won't fit anywhere else?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they thought that through, really.
No.
There's lots of talk of honour from the Klingons,
yeah,
including a "Today is a good day to die," which is more of a Next Generation thing than a original series Klingon thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we do get Starscream being very treacherous, as Starscream is wont to do, evermore begging the question why Megatron has him as his deputy. I mean, God, how many inevitable betrayals can you have? Oh. Yeah, it wasn't as much fun as the last issue, just because the last issue was so crazy nuts. But it was all right. And I did like the way they captured Shatner's dialogue. That was a nice bit of genius. That was.
Yeah. Does the Llama God have anything to say about this?
He does indeed. Let's find out what he made of issue 4.
Llama God's log, Scott date, Noijake, Shack Jake. He's a rocket man. Well, kind of. I mean, he's a nacelle man, doesn't really have the same ring, or has certain other implications. Anywho, Here we are then, issue 4 of Star Trek vs. Transformers. And as with my previous feedback for this, I'm not going to have an awful lot to say because, as with all these comic crossover events, which feature the modern trend for decompressed storytelling, there's not an awful lot to the plotting. However, there was some fun to be had in this issue as we see Captain Kirk stood in command of the Tiberius Maximus, or Fortress Kirkimus, whoever he is. Fortress Tiberius. Tiberius Maximus will work better, actually. Never mind. But so we have Captain Kirk in charge of a transforming giant starship Enterprise, beating up Tripticon, who unconvincingly turns into a Klingon D7 battlecruiser. It's a shame that the artwork doesn't actually reflect the fact that Tripticon now actually turns into a Klingon starship and is just his normal dinosaur mode. So, likewise that the D7 has some parts of Tripticon, a bit unfortunate, but I guess at least, if nothing else, it's true to the original cartoon artwork, where presumably both for the Filmation series and for the animated Transformers series, they wouldn't have made that sort of effort in the artwork either. I guess this issue features two key themes that are at least true to their source materials. The first, of course, is Kirk versus machine, and although Kirk is working with the machine, he still needs to let the machine take control of him, so he obviously has to assert his own mental dominance over the machine, and that's a theme we've seen a lot of time in Star Trek. And of course, because it's Kirk, of course, it succeeds. And the other theme is, of course, Starscream running off with the Energon on his own, bit of display of treachery and duplicity, and that's just Starscream in it. That's Starscream's raison d'etre. And that's all there is to it, really. And then following Starscream's treachery, Kirk does the other thing that Kirk does best, which is he goes off alone in charge of Fortress Starship Tiberius Enterprise, whatever it is now, I've forgotten already, as the one man standing alone who can save the day, and that's Kirk in a nutshell. Yeah, one more issue to go as Starscream attempts to take over Kronos. I can see that going on particularly well, can't you? And that's what's really making me look forward to the next and final issue, is just to see exactly how badly it does go for Starscream. So yeah, anyway, until that one comes along, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Tripticon is a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex, or whatever the hell he's supposed to be, transforming into a D7. None of the shapes matching.
No.
You're right. They would have done it that way on the both the original cartoon and the animated series. But it does stick out like a sore thumb.
No.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, take care. Cheery bye, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Must be talking to an angel. 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 Must be talking to an angel.
Shut it down!
Off, you bugger. Off.